So today I'm here to talk about reopening countries and what does that mean? Well, during this pandemic, it has really affected and touched all walks of life and businesses and economies in a way I don't think anyone could have imagined a few months ago. Just in February, I was at the Google headquarters in Silicon Valley without a care in the world. And then to think that just a few weeks later, the world was stopped. People were forced to work from home overnight. Thousands of people of those same offices and buildings that I was walking around were empty. Teams were spread out all over the place. The flow of people started to get cut down, and there were some countries where the scale of the infections and the mortality rate was quite frightening. Countries like Italy and UK and the US were just starting to get really high every single day, and that's when we realized that this is not something which is going to be solved overnight. If we look at what some of the strategies were that the countries implemented to tackle this is a good place to start. So South Korea was very fast to action. They did COVID-19 screenings at scale, and then they confined those people to make sure that they got tested, and the ones that were positive were isolated and quarantined. And I think more importantly, once society was starting to get out again, they utilized protection like face masks to make sure that people were not spreading the disease even afterwards. In the US and the UK, we saw very different problems which were really city related. So places like London and New York, where they were probably already overpopulated cities, the infections were huge, and this put huge burdens on the health authorities. Emergency lines were blocked, people couldn't get through, people were dying just because they couldn't get the advice fast enough. And really, it was quite scary how this escalated out of control very fast, very quickly. There's other countries that are yet to see their spike, and those governments are trying to learn from the countries that have had the spikes to see how they can prepare better. And this really is about utilizing technology combined with the COVID-19 tests to look at how pre-screening can be done on scale. So there are different stages that really the focus needs to be on. If I look at the power of technology, this is what it's designed for. It's designed for the impact of humanity, regardless of location, to ensure that people who are pre-screened really can be actioned faster in terms of if you do 1 million pre-screenings of a certain city, you can very quickly understand who is high risk and make sure that they are the people that get tested first, and then the others can be tested in order of priority. This also helps the COVID-19 testing centres to cope with the huge numbers of people that are coming through to them, because it's impossible to test a population of 20 million in a matter of days. Yet with technology, something like Mediscreen, you can do that. That is achievable. There's huge pressures on economies as well right now to really open up faster, and really employers are also looking at ways to protect their employees. So I'll break it down for you. There are those employees which are really in the frontline jobs. So whether they are the ports, whether they are the retail stores, the grocery stores where we are buying our food from, the transport services, for example, that's another one. These people are much more vulnerable than someone who maybe is sitting at a desk in the office. It's harder to implement the protection of these people. However, through regular pre-screening, like weekly pre-screening, this really allows the employers to be able to protect their employees. People are in a very fragile state at the moment, and there is a huge amount of fear about returning to work, coming back into the office. So employers really have a duty to make sure that they are doing all that they can, and it's about mitigating risk. What would happen to businesses if suddenly you had to shut down your business for weeks because people have got the COVID-19, have come into the office too early and infected those around them? This could be absolutely detrimental, and we have started to see examples of that. Companies have actually shut down after 2 days of being open, and this really could have been mitigated and avoided if people were pre-screened from home before they even returned back to the office. And then it doesn't stop, it has to carry on. If I look at the movement of people, which really travel is going to start happening, maybe not at the scale and the levels that it was before, but it will. Airlines will start carrying passengers and already are. Again, lower numbers, but all it takes is one infected passenger to be on the plane, and it could be could be huge implications for the airline to really lose confidence from potential passengers in the future. So a company could integrate like a Mediscreen link into the time of booking that a passenger wants to book a flight for maybe a week or 2 weeks time, and they can be evaluated from home before their travel. If they're deemed as low risk, obviously they can come onto the plane, and if they're deemed medium and high and critical, they have to go for COVID-19 testing. And what that allows companies to do really is to make sure that they are taking precautions where necessary, because it's physically impossible to test all of the passengers and all of the crew for every single flight. Even economics, it doesn't make sense. But cost-effective pre-screening like Mediscreen, it can help in a huge way. Same with hotels. They are starting to open up, and I think a lot of the cities are going to be benefiting maybe from staycations from people that are within the cities rather than outside visitors. So hotels can really start pre-screening guests when they have made their bookings, to send out a link so that they can make sure the people who are coming in are not infecting their staff, and at the same time keeping their staff pre-screened on a regular basis as well. We need to keep the borders open. It's really important that the economy start to recover from the huge damage that's done, but need to do this safely, because if this is rushed and this process moves super fast, what will end up happening is it will be back to lockdown, not back to work. And that second spike could be more deadly. So people are fearful of that, and governments are trying to avoid that where possible. So it really is about bringing the private and public sector together. It's about seeking the innovation that is out there to really start working in collaboration with the whole process. I think that's where employers are looking for solutions and need to sort of look at things that can be deployed easily and virtually and fast. Which is, it's doable. It's doable. It's not the solution. And I think while the vaccination happens and is found and is invented, there's going to be many peaks and troughs. And really, this is where technology can help mitigate risk, which is what we're really focusing on. At airports, for example, this technology can be implemented, like Mediscreen, to pre-screen everybody who's coming in and out of the country. And again, what that allows is the flow of the people that could be infected. So I'll take New Zealand as an example of a country with no infections, right, which is great. But they will be receiving guests and people into their countries, and this could then make infections come into the country. Other than temperature scanners at the airport, I'm not really seeing much or hearing much about what's being done at the airport. So I do think that's an ideal place for solutions like ours to be implemented and really take off to help mitigate this risk. The power of data and technology, and there is a fine line when it comes to data and ethics. I'm in technology, and I still find certain solutions a little bit too intrusive into movements, for example, right? So I know there's a lot of coronavirus kind of tracing systems that people do not feel comfortable with. So it really is about deploying solutions that people do feel comfortable with, do know where their data is going, and how it's being utilized is really key and important. And it's also up to the companies, like we are utilizing data to really help the doctors be able to do their job faster, because they are the ones that are diagnosing. And with employers, really, it's not about revealing the details of what the employees said about their condition. It's really about giving the employers just a dashboard of the overall results of who is okay to come back into work and who should be sent for testing. So I think, again, the line between data ethics is a fine line, and it's really important that society understand that this type of approach does need to be taken to help mitigate risk and to learn from what's happening around COVID, while at the same time being reassured that this is for their safety and health and well-being as well.